What up, Brandon B, Elite Media Co. What's good out there? Elite Live Streams. We back with another one. What's good, everybody out there? How you doing? It is October. We in the vibes, as you can see. Very vibed out, very fall vibes. That's what we on. And I got a question for y'all. As you guys can see the title, does white lives matter to white people? That's what we talking about today, because over the weekend, there's been over 3 different mass murders. We've seen one guy go blowing up a church. We saw another guy on a boat shooting people on a riverfront. Okay. Then we also seen another guy kill 3 police officers. All right. And there's also a guy in Kansas who did something too. It's just getting out of control, guys. And we're here to talk about it today because for a while, all right, in my opinion, since 2016, I've watched, okay, content creator after content creator after content creator come on here, this here YouTube streets. All right, I've watched them, I've seen them come on here and endlessly talk about black on black crime, what's wrong with the black community, what's going on with the black community. They're so aggressive, they're so violent. Now, we just had Charlie Kirk get assassinated, and we've seen a overwhelming response to that. The exact same day someone else got murdered and unalived in Utah. It's just been out of control. And the ones who know, we are paying attention to seeing what is going on right now in this country. What the heck is going on, right? There's a lot of us who are sitting here watching, assessing, trying to make sense of all this stuff that's happening. And it's really hard to make sense of it all because it just don't make sense. All right. At least to a logically thinking person, right? You would think, hey, man, there's no point for anybody to be, unaliving people. There's no point in anybody having to go to a church, a sacred place, and disrupt that with violence and murder. Nobody needs that, right? And we're seeing it every day. So I just wanted to start and get this conversation going because it's been on my mind. I've been watching it, paying attention. As you guys saw, I dropped a video right here on this channel. Okay? Right here on this channel, guys. Okay? I dropped a video that, in my opinion, was definitely needed and necessary. Okay? On 2 weeks ago, I said white America has a crisis happening with young white men. That's what I said 2 weeks ago. All right. Before all this happened, before Charlie Kirk, all this stuff. All right. This was just a massive, foresight from my perspective where I saw this 2 weeks ago. I already made a video on my channel. All right. I try to tell people, okay, white America has a crisis right now. I try to warn people, but they didn't listen. So it's just going to keep happening until something happens. But I thought it was important for me to reference back to things that I've already spoke on so that you guys can understand that I've already been peeping this. So on my channel, like I said, 2 weeks ago, I had already said there is a crisis happening right now with young white men, right? And I tried my best to, articulate it in such a way that people could understand, that it was very digestible. It was easy for people to kind of get on code and understand what I was talking about. And I made it a very, very direct video, right? And that video got crazy responses. I'm getting racist in the chat, in the comment section, talking crazy to me, saying that I'm talking crazy. I don't know what I'm talking about. These are all lies. That's what they were telling me in my chat. Okay. So when I heard and saw kind of just everything that was happening from there, I just kept pushing it, right? All right, cool. Since you guys don't want to, act like this is not what it is, fine. Let's see what happens. And literally a week after that, Charlie Kirk gets assassinated, right? Charlie Kirk gets assassinated. He's out of there. And now it's a outrage. Now it needs to stop. Now the political violence is just too much. But when I was talking about it, it was just another mass shooting. It was just another, situation, right? So let me bring this up for you guys so you guys can understand. Like I said, at Elite Media, we have and bring the receipts every single time. We don't mess around here. We bring it right to you guys so you guys can have your own perception. All right. Me and J Rock built this platform on truth and understanding. We wanted to be able to use this platform to tell people what's going on, and we leave it to you guys' perception. Whatever you guys think, you guys can let us know in the comment section. You guys can let us know however you feel. But at the end of the day, we're going to keep it real here, right? That's just what we do at Elite Media. We don't fuck around. We keep everything straight up, no cuts. All right. So, first of all, I'm going to bring up the young brother, Adam Mockler. All right. He has his own media company, his independent media as well, just like we are here at Elite Media. Adam Mockler, he was on the CNN correspondings. You know, he's making his way up. You know what I'm saying? And they were talking about the Target CEO, right? With the rollbacks and all that. But he had an interesting point that I felt like was very important for all of us to hear. So let's hear it from a young white fellow like himself. All right. So let's hear it, guys.
Shootings happens. Everybody's at each other's throats about which side did it, but we're missing a broader pattern in America. This was another young white dude who's in his 20s. We have seen this pattern accelerating over the past decade. The same day Charlie Kirk was shot, the same exact time, there was a neo-Nazi who shot up a school in Colorado.
All right. So this is where we're at, guys. The pattern, right? The pattern. Okay. This has been happening for a while now, and we can go all the way back. That's why I said to 2016, guys. 2016, I was on Facebook telling people, explaining to them what's happening. All this stuff was going on, and everybody was just like, oh, it's all good, blah, 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 blah. And it just kept escalating, right? Fast forward 9 years. Now we got it at a point where it is literally uncontrollable. Every single day, there is a story or some sort of, case where someone is being, put in a scenario where they might be or are unalived.
We can look at the acceleration of the radicalization of young men through a few frameworks. There's the COVID pandemic, which had people isolated, had a bubble around themselves, and a lot of young men failed to pull that bubble down and got sucked down these algorithms.
All right, that's facts. A lot of people were consuming a lot of content during that time, a lot of pro right-wing content that was literally brainwashing the youth, right? And this is 5 years ago, guys. So think about that. 5 years of consuming the same content, letting it over and over play into your head, allowing it to just seep down into your thoughts. And then as well, we're also seeing the decline of the economy. We're seeing the decline of jobs. We're seeing the decline of opportunities. So once we see that, there has to be somebody to blame, right? There's always somebody to blame in the mind of a, extremist.
Seen it happen to my close friends. They get sucked down these algorithms. We have foreign actors trying to sow chaos in America, sow division. How much does Putin salivate when he sees us at each other's throats? Then we have domestic actors, people like Elon Musk, riling it up. So all of these factors. Wait, hold on.
That's facts, man. You have the rich who are playing within this whole construct, man. The PSYOP connection. You cannot ignore that, right? The PSYOP that we are all being used and pitted against one another to be able to go ahead and have, the top 1% lean back and say, oh, no, nothing's happening here. We don't know what's going on, guys. Don't, nothing to see, right? But in reality, we already know what's happening. We understand that they are using, right, the internet. They're using content creators. They're using the algorithm to be able to share and to be able to manipulate young minds into an extreme state to where they feel it would be okay to pick up a weapon and go out and hurt people who they don't know, who did nothing to them, right? The young rage, right, that is inside of young white males right now cannot be understated. It's insane right now. It's out of control, honestly. 100%.
Ben, all of these factors come together to create this pattern that we see of young men in my age range committing these shootings. And if you want to sit here and go back and forth, tit for tat, I can say Dylan Roof, Robert Bowers, John Earnest, none of these were black people. None of these were trans people. None of these were even Democrats. These were neo-Nazis who had things carved into their guns. You can sit here and muddy the waters, but you are just lying.
That's it, because it don't matter. Either side, whether you think liberal, whether you think the far right, we have seen the mass shootings and mass murders from both sides, guys. That's what we're seeing here. It don't matter. And so that's why I think it's a real crisis, is because one is trying to blame the other, when in reality, it's a system, it's a problem within all of the community, right? And until that gets addressed, we're only going to see more and more of this, right? Because there is no solution other than what? Other than them using one another, whether it be on the right, whether it be on the left. We're going to use you guys to be able to push whatever narratives that we want, whatever objectives, whatever chaos we want to sow, it must be sowed, right? So I was like, okay, this is kind of crazy. So let's continue, because I think he keeps going after this, if I'm not mistaken.
I want innocent people to die. Sue me for that.
Then maybe tell Trump to tone down his rhetoric.
That's the thing. Everybody wants to change the subject, and they want to yell about trans folks and the bathrooms, and they'll demonize black folks walking down the street. They'll talk about black on black crime. They'll talk about Chicago and DC. But when it comes to the real headline, that's the real headline right there. When are we going to talk about the high number of these mass shooters coming from young white men 18 to 30 years old?
All right, that's just facts. When are we going to start having the conversation, guys? When is it going to be enough? When are we going to be able to stop being scared and actually have a conversation about what's really going on? Is that too much to ask? No, that's too much to ask, huh? Right? So let's bring up the statistics, right? Let's do some stats, right? Because like I said, at Elite Media, we bring receipts, man. We don't just get up here and talk and try to make people see or hear just a bunch of BS all day. We're going to give you the real, actual factuals, right? Because that is important. Like, we need to see every single part of this, because like I said, there's a lot of like misinformation that goes on the daily basis. Like I said, since 2016, I've been watching people on this YouTube talk and give these crazy outlooks about what they think happened and black on black crime and all this other stuff. So I just thought it would be important for us to bring up the stats so that you guys can see, right? So that you guys can understand what's really going on here, right? So let me zoom in. Let's do it at 200%, right? Let's get it nice and close for you guys so you guys can see here. All right, let's exit that out. All right. The number of mass shootings in 2025 depends on the definition used, right? So the tracker is reporting different totals of early October 2025, right? So these are just, overall statistics that they're saying currently, right? So let's go in, right? Let's see. So the mass shooting tracker, right? They have a mass shooting tracker, has already tracked 382 incidents this year. This organization counts any event where 4 or more people are shot, all right? Regardless of whether they were shot or wounded, all right? Boom, there you go, right there, right? So the Gun Violence Archive also credits around 327 incidents. Like the mass shooting tracker, the GVA generally uses 4 or more shot threshold, but applies slightly to different tracking. All right, cool. Got that, right? So then we go to the Washington Post, because I think Wikipedia, we can already understand that Wikipedia is going to do kind of an overall. But the Washington Post says 10 mass shootings, right? 10 mass killings, okay? This newspaper tracks mass killings, which it defines as incidents where 4 or more people were killed, right? All right, got you. NPR, right? 12 incidents as of September 17th, 2025, right? All year, okay? That's in a mass, that's a pretty crazy number, right? It's pretty, that's a lot of, it's a lot more than we would actually like. And that's the point, is like we're starting to see an uptick. We're starting to see that these people who are feeling emboldened to go out here and to do these things, they do not feel any repercussion because there is none. All right. There is no repercussion for these kids to continue this behavior until someone says, hey, enough. Right. We have a problem and we need to address it. But that's not going to happen until the community as a whole comes together and says, hey, man, there's something going on with these mass shootings within young white men, and we got to figure it out. Because it's getting really, really crazy to where now we're starting to see a very, very high percentage, right? A high percentage, right? Let's see here. All right. So now let's bring up this one, right? Because it's all about receipts, all about data, right? All about making sure that we are on the right side of the stats, right? We want to make sure that we bring up the stats completely to make sure that our reference points are relevant. Okay. So let's see here. Boom. We're going to bring it up right there. All right. Let's go a little bit. Let's go 200%, man. Let's get it really close as we can so you guys can see just the overall stats, right? Statistics on white male perpetrators, okay? Check it out here. An analysis of targeted mass shootings from 1966 to 2024 found that white men committed 101 incidents, accounting for 51% of all cases, right? Data published in 2025 shows that 54% of mass shootings between 1982 and August 2025 were carried out by white shooters. All right. That's over 54%, guys. Okay. A 2017 PolyFact article examining the data reported that non-Hispanic white men carried out 54% of mass shootings in their database, which dates back to 1982. All right. So we are already seeing an overwhelming amount there, right? Already. Okay. So an analysis by the Violence Project found that mass shooters often fall into 2 age groups, right? Men in their 40s who commit workplace shootings, and a large group of young people aged 18 to 21. All right. The guy who murdered and unalived Charlie Kirk was 22 years old. All right. So we are not just going off of anything out the, top of the sky. This is actual factuals. Okay. All right. It's insane because there's something that, like, I think when you're looking at it overall, it's a very interesting perspective, because not a lot of people want to talk about this. Not a lot of people want to touch this subject because there is no incentive to. There's no views for it. Nobody's going to look at it in a certain capacity. People are going to take the content and move it into whatever they want to move it into, right? And so from that perspective, we cannot and will not allow that here at Elite Media. All right. We're going to keep it right on the facts and make sure that we are bringing the facts, because, like I said, there is something going on. And I made this clear a long time ago on my channel. All right. 2 weeks ago, I said there was a crisis happening right now in the white community and somebody needed to do something. And no one listened, man. People just try to come in my comment section, say that I'm making stuff up, that I'm just being ridiculous, that you're just talking out of your, whatever, you're racist. I was called a black racist, which is impossible, but I was called that. Okay. For whatever reason, because I'm just bringing up the freaking stats. All right. So now they're saying that there's going to be a war against Christianity because a lot of these guys are traditionally from Christian families. So now they're saying that there's a war against Christianity, and the fact that Charlie Kirk got murdered was the first step in this. And so I wanted to bring up a very interesting video that I came across. And this one was by these young ladies at Life Take Two. I guess her story is she was a former MAGA, and now she's changed her life around, and she saw the errors of her ways, and she wants to, make it, her business to expose, the Christian, fakers, right? So I like this video. It was a good video, and it kind of just explained things that from their perspective that I necessarily wasn't too privy to. So let's hear what they have to say, right?
Is to step back from the conversation about politics and religion for a moment and just remind everyone that all of us have so much in common. I say this a lot, but I want it to really sink in. We have more in common than we do different from each other.
Facts.
We all want the same things. We all want peace and prosperity for ourselves and the people we love and care about, for our children and for the future. Now, arguably, definitely there are men and women who don't want peace and prosperity. They want to sow division and hate and chaos in this country.
All right, and that's where we're at right now. We're seeing the overwhelming amount of people who are miserable and people who do not want to see any resolution. They want to fight, they want to create division, they want to create chaos, and they do not have any solutions. That's where we're at. And anytime you see me on this channel, on YouTube, any content, I am always a solution-based content creator. I don't get on here and just talk and chastise people. I'm always making sure that I let people know I'm looking for solutions. If you have them, please, let's have dialogue. And you can look at any of my content and see that. But at the end of the day, there are people who are not like me who do not think this way. There are people who want things their way, and they will not compromise on that. And I'm telling you that that's going to be their demise. We already know this.
Country. And I just would ask you to take a look at who benefits and who profits when we're fighting with each other. And I mentioned the Chase Hughes video that came out shortly after the Charlie Kirk shooting, where he refers to these tactics as classic psychological operations, where you
psyops, man. These are classic divide and conquer tactics that we've seen. And now, like I said, that rabbit hole and that, algorithm that has influenced all these young white men into thinking a certain way and blaming, others when they need to be looking at the ones who they are idolizing. And once that can change, once that idolization, once that glaze kind of comes off, once they let go of that matrix way of thinking, then maybe we'll be able to actually make some headway on these motherfuckers,
Hit one side against the other. And then the people at the top who benefit, no matter who is in the White House and no matter who wins the war, no matter who wins the election. It's the people who own the news organizations and who own the war machines and those types of things. If they can keep us fighting with each other, then they stop us from thinking critically about the real issues, about who is in charge and all of that. So I would love to take a step back from politics and religion and to encourage people to connect with their fellow human beings and to have really good conversations about what we have in common.
That's it, because we're not going to get any further without that. You feel me? And so she makes it pretty clear, right? Just kind of on what that means, right? So let's get to the next lady, right? This is the one who I said former MAGA. Now she's kind of changed up her tune. She's on a different path now. So let's see what she has to say.
I know there's a lot of great stuff out there on YouTube, and I always appreciate when you stop on one of my videos. I had planned to talk about the topic that I'm going to cover today before this tragedy in Michigan, which has punched me so hard in the guts that honestly, I feel like I just want to go curl up in my bed right now, potato bug style, and maybe just stay there indefinitely. But instead, I brushed my hair, put on some mascara and blush, and here I am so that we can have a conversation about this horrifying attack on a congregation in Michigan for my former church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, where
All right, guys. So look, this is something that has directly affected her, and like I said, this is happening like very frequently. We saw 3 over the last weekend. Okay, 3 mass shootings already. Right? We already had Charlie Kirk a couple weeks ago. Then there was the one in Utah. There was another one like I just heard in Kansas. There's a lot going on, so of course, like it's hard to keep up at this point. I'm gonna just keep it honest with you guys, like it really is.
I spent 44 years of my life, a church which my children's 7 great granddad joined and his wife, and which would later become several polygamist wives. Erastus Bingham was his name. And I'm descended from great grandma, grandparents, parents. So I'm the 4th generation Mormon in my mom's side of the family. I was born and raised in this church, and I know intimately what these buildings look like, what was going on during church today, the songs that they were singing, the feeling that it is to be inside of a Mormon church on Sunday. That was my life for 44 years, which, by the way, if you're doing math, is something like 2,000 something Sundays that I personally spent inside of a Mormon church myself. So although I don't personally know anybody who is inside the congregation of Michigan, as far as I know, this hits really close for me. I've read.
Hey, look, and this, like I said, this just happened. So when you're seeing kind of the more of the school shootings, like I said, we already had Dylan Roof, who shot up that school in that church in South Carolina, right? There's a pattern for the targeting of churches that it just doesn't make sense. Like, why would you want to kill somebody in a church? But whatever, some people are different.
Reports that say that as soon as President Trump was briefed about this horrific event, he stated that Christians are under attack, which is the same thing that he said after the Charlie Kirk tragedy.
All right, so look, that's a big component is, like I said, the wording, how they're able to use certain verbiage, how they're able to use certain, trigger words to get people to feel or invoke a certain emotion. We got to watch that. We got to watch people who are so quick to do these type of things. And like I said, I've been peeping this since 2016, guys. I was in a big part of an organization at the time that was really connected to the Black Lives Matter movement and here in Long Beach, California. And so during that, whole think tank 2016, we had already, seen on our radar, like I brought those receipts as well on a couple of videos back, that there were white nationalist groups and that the FBI had considered the white nationalist groups as one of the most threats to our safety as U.S. citizens were white nationalist groups. All right. This is a report from 2016. They just recently, the DOJ just wiped it, all right, from their entire websites, because now we're starting to see the fruits of that labor. We're starting to see more of that seeping into our whole lives, right? Every day we're seeing someone, being unalived, or someone's church being shot up, or some school being shot up, or some concert, right? Some college campus. And this has been on their radar for over 10 years. It's been on my radar for 10 years. Okay. And I'm just a guy who comes across, information across on the internet. All right. So I can only imagine the intelligence and the overall research that the FBI, CIA are privy to, and they know what's going on, right? They know what's up.
This is something that we're hearing a lot lately, that Christians are under attack. And just like in the Charlie Kirk tragedy, the president has spoken before we know who the suspect is, before we know anything about the motive, before we know if this was religiously charged, if this was just some rando who decided to do this. And the thing to me that's almost as heartbreaking and heavy as this horrific event is the division in our country.
That's it. I mean, it's bad as it's ever been. And I think, like I said, now we have to really ask ourselves, like, we saw the Black Lives Matter movement. We saw how everyone just mocked Black people, right? And even as far as going to say white lives matter, right? Okay, so now we're here. We're here. Full circle moment, guys. 10 years later, right? Full circle moment. Do white lives matter to white people? That's the question. I just gave you guys stats, right? Full on stats of what's happening right now, who's been doing what age range, what's going on, and nothing. Crickets, okay? Crickets, right? So let's see. Let's talk about how many people, because these are white folks too, right? Let's talk about how many white folks have been killed in the Ukrainian-Russian war, right? Let's talk about that, because those are white folks too. And like I said, do white folks care about white people? Because this is white folks too. Okay, these are white folks right here. These are white folks in the UK. Unfortunately, you know what I'm saying? It's over there in Russia and Ukraine, right? But that's what it is. It is what it is, guys. It is what it is. All right. Total verified deaths as of July 31st, 2025, 13,883 civilian deaths. All right. In the Ukrainian and Russian war right now, 13,883. Okay. Russian forces in August of 2025, there's an estimated from media outlets, okay, Russian soldiers killed in the war at 219,000. Okay, 219,000 have been unalived in this war already, all right? And they could say that that is an estimate, all right? Based on open source data, it could put that total from 197,100 to 284,700. All right? All right. That's what we're seeing, guys. And that's what I mean. Like, if we want to know, do white lives matter to white people? Right? Because they always talk about the gun violence in the black community. They're always talking about black on black violence. They're always talking about what's going on with us. What about them? I gave you guys stats, not only from America, but also what they're doing in Europe to one another. Okay? White on white violence. Help me understand, guys, okay? Because what I saw was that white on white violence is at an 84 percentile. 84% of murders that happen to white people are from white people. All right? So help me understand, guys. I need to know. Let me know in the comment section what you guys think. All right? What you guys think. Do white lives matter to white people? Help me understand, because like I said, since 2016, since the inception of Black Lives Matter movement, after Trayvon Martin was viciously murdered by that coward Zimmerman, all right, I saw people going around telling me to not worry about Black Lives Matter, white lives matter too. Okay, well, help me understand how they do when every single day there's a mass murder, there's some sort of, person being unalived at a church, they're at waterfronts, workplaces, okay? So yeah, leave it in the comments for me, guys. Let me know, all right? Do white lives matter to white people? Because what I'm seeing is it doesn't. All right, I'm seeing nothing but violence. All right. So y'all let me know, man. My name's Brandon B. I'm part of Elite Media, man. This is what we do. We hold up the mirror to any of the BS going on in the world, and we're always going to hold people accountable here. Because like she said in that video earlier, the only way that we are able to work together is to be able to openly talk about these subjects together. Y'all want to talk about black on black crime? Fine. But let's make sure we're also talking about white on white crime too. All right. Let's make sure we're holding each other accountable. Right. Let's make sure that when we talk about this, we're bringing stats, we're bringing actual factuals, and we're not gonna play the semantics. Not over here at Elite Media, man. So y'all make sure you guys let me know in the comments what you guys think about what I just said, right? Does white lives matter to white people? Let me know in the comments, man. Please let me know. My name's Elite. My name's Brandon B. This is Elite Media, and we out, man. Please make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Show your boys some love. Get in them comment sections. Blow it up for us, man. We love the engagement. Peace.